Damian Questiny on the line, and he's with Hypertech. So, Damian, I know some more people are going to hop on. I'm sure it's probably pretty good. We had a really interesting discussion earlier today, didn't we?
We did. Yeah, I enjoyed it. We went over a few different subjects, from biohacking to time travel.
Right, and I really found it pretty interesting how you were talking about how we can time travel. And can you explain that concept, how breaking down?
Sure. Well, you have to start with a few assumptions first. One is time play. You have to assume that time plays a role in everybody's life, and we have an agreement with time, which is the ever-present now, that we all participate within, and it collapses in on itself into through all the different potentials that have ever existed or ever will exist, and collapses into the moment. So this is the sum total agreement of all of our experiences that we can say yes definitively with evidence and compassion that this is reality. So now that you know that that's technically like the singularity, that's like the moment in time where all things fall into. Through that process, you have what's called potentiality. Through your decisions, through your choices, you can actually manipulate, change, convert, switch, whatever it is that you want to do within the reality that you find yourself in locally. You through pressure and temperature and interaction with that, you can actually change the world around you on very small levels that end up becoming large over time, if you will, if you are constantly putting energy and effort behind it. So that's...
Let's have you repeat that one more time for those of you folks, if it's anything new on a new concept. He's basically saying that you can change elements, you can change timeline, but it takes some effort. So say that one more time.
Sure. Let's break it out into a different way for other people who are more instead of listeners, they're more visual. Think of your body like a receiver and a transmitter. And you actually have an organizational process that is built into your body. So when we were discussing earlier, this part of it, what I'll be sharing, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm just reminding you of what you already know. I'm just putting it into an...
Can we stop right there for 2 seconds? Because that is the statement that you said that reminded me to put down in the title that in the Matrix we have amnesia. And there are people that I call knowers, and they kind of wake people up and they get them out of the amnesia. Am I correct? I mean, just reminding us of something that we already know.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The reward for this type of technology is very simple. It's memory. And memory is actually more fluid than anything. And so the more vivid the memory, the more access you have to detail, and the more you are able to move in harmony, if you will, with the rest of the world, like in your life. So that way you have more influence with your, with what's going on inside and outside of you. So for time to... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just was saying that's amazing. I mean, it's definitely a concept I like. Damian has his own program, Damian Questiny, has his own YouTube show, and when he draws these diagrams and these symbols, explain when they look at them. Can we give them a clue, or should we not?
Yeah, sure. Everything's open source. That's the idea here. It's to provide just a way for people. Okay, so on what you're talking about is when you look at the videos on my channel, I have diagrams, or some people call them plates, some people call them flowers. There's all these different terms for them, but think of it like a hyperdimensional space, and you can actually reach in to the plate itself, and you can actually grab it, hold on to it, move it, switch it, move the words around, spin it around. It's a one-dimensional representation with a two-dimensional, everything's broken out into this laddering system, so that way you can build a matrix through all the different platforms, so you can actually get to the core of any subject that you want, any subject that you're interested in, you build a relationship with that. And so so hypertech is really about finding the connection, the relationship, and the synthesis with all things. So it's it's like the coalescence of as above, so below, all things. We're all connected in some way, and it's through the elemental process that connection exists. So in other words, there's earth, air, water, and fire. Those are like the four basic elements, right? Everything that exists within our reality has these elements built into them. For example, with regard to the hypertech system, how the coalescent science works is air is associated actually to the mind. Water is associated to the gut. Fire is associated to the heart, and earth is associated to the body. And then you can extrapolate that more to where so air, mind, so that's where reason and intellect come from. Water is emotion, or the EM, ocean, right? So so that's where your feelings and your feelings are, and like your intuition too. And then in your heart you have like your will and your desire. And you'll notice that these words actually are encoded too, like when you look at the plates, they're encoded with masculine and feminine properties associated to them, because you do want that full spectrum of wholeness, that yin and yang property.
Right. So let me just interject something. Because if they haven't followed your channel, I just want to make sure that people understand. So when somebody is talking about something that is truth, and yes, breaking down, it is balance. Everything is balance. It is balance with the yin and yang. When somebody is talking something that is truth, there's an awakening process happening, and what he was saying, reminding you of what you already knew, but we were doing amnesia when we came here.
Yeah.
Sorry, but we were, and I'm not exactly sure why. But anyways, let's have you start where you were talking about, and then I want to go into. You had a really interesting point, but let's go into the time travel thing again just a little bit more, because let's focus in on that, and then I'm going to go somewhere else.
Okay. So time travel. The ever-present now, the moment, this is the most important part of time travel. We all do it. We're all in process right now of time traveling, and we have a limited lifespan in which we participate within. But think of it more like with the body itself, how time plays a role in the body. It's a way to organize our experiences and our senses. So because we can change things within the permanence of our reality, because this will be here long after we're gone, and it was here long before we got here. So this is from our perspective, this is a permanent reality. So because we can change, we have a way to manipulate the change. There is time that's built in, so that way we know where we left everything. We know where to find it.
Right.
Okay. So, and our bodies actually tune in to time. Now, how it works is that our bodies are very good at remembering the past. So, because all of our societies have focused heavily.
Does this have to do a little bit with quantum entanglement and...
Yes, absolutely.
Neural net and all that? Maybe we could explain just a teeny bit of that?
Yes. In fact, that's kind of what I'm getting into. Quantum entanglement is what I call the harmony matrix. It's the synthesis. It's when we're moving into this new age, so to speak. For the people who kind of on your channel who may like this, we're moving into the new age, and the new age is the age of synthesis. So it's the age of innovation and invention, things like that. So it's not we're coagulating. We're building our structure together now. So how time works in association to that is our minds are associated more towards the past. And so it's like, I remember when. Our hearts are tuned in to the present moment, and our guts are tuned in to the future. So say
that one more time. Bam. Say that one
okay.
more time.
Okay, so everything in our reality that has a structure and a form eventually builds like a triangle, a trinity. And the Trinity is actually how you aim and focus intent. And what you intend to do and what you actually do is really what matters in this reality in the end, when we're talking about time. So that's what the end result is. That's the reward for participating within time. Your mind. So like you hear about, like I teach remote viewing, time travel, and magic. So remote viewing is the mind. So actually I use remote viewing for the past because I remember when. So when I want to find things that are of evidence, of reason and intellect, that's the process I use for that. My heart I use for target details in the present moment. But your gut is actually how you get information from the future. And if you can have a relationship,
you know what, Damian, breaking on, she just said gut tuned into the future. Yes, intuition, your gut intuition. But here's where we get into where is your soul? And Damian, why don't you explain what you told me earlier today?
Okay, you are a multifaceted being. So you have more than a soul. You also have a spirit. So your spirit actually is within your mental zones. It is the ethereal, ever moving. Okay? But your spirit has a definite purpose associated to it. A spirit has it has a trajectory and an aim. But that is within the headspace, the above space. The soul is actually within the gut. And this is...
You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So, do we all need to do gut ab training?
Yes, well, think of it this way. Because the gut is associated with these different properties, there has been a lot of aggregated information, like movies, things that we're always subjected to, that is constantly killing the gut. Like mom is always dead in like every movie, right? This is mom. Mom is in the gut. Dad is in the head. Okay? Your identity, your individuality, not your personality, mind you, but your identity and your individuality, not your ego, that's in the heart. Okay, that's your will and your desire. That's your motivation and your inspiration. So that takes both the mind and the gut and judges it and says, okay, I heard your side and I feel your side. Now I need to make a decision, and my decision is the act in which I'm performing based on my experiences, which come from the gut, and the experiences which actually are the connection to the gut, because the gut wants to bring the future to the present, and the only way the gut can bring the future to the present into the heart is by teaching the heart experience. So it's an outward expression of an inward process. And then the mind does the opposite. It teaches about force, not about power. So and that's the past. And that's what it teaches. It says, well, look, I have evidence. I can prove that this is the way things are. And that's what the mind does. So mind is always moving. It's always switching. It's never still. This is another reason why it's associated to the element of air. Now, once you harmonize with all the elements, that's like the fourth level of magic. You move into the fifth level of magic, which you hear like the fifth element, right? The spirit, those kind of things. That's the 5. The 6 is the soul. That's the gut. So there's a building block that happens because you are actually a multifaceted being.
Right, so your soul gets the gut instinct. But is it within your spirit that kind of already knows? Is that where the knowing is? Is in the spirit mind?
Actually knowing, here's what's weird. Knowing for some reason doesn't really, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but knowing doesn't necessarily come from the mind. Knowing, a knowledge is actually a more of a gut-oriented word. It's a holistic word. A knowing. Right. Yeah. Now, a thought or a reason, or like an ethical, like a thought, that's more of the mind, if you will. Now the trick is with the gut, though. Just to finish this off, the trick is with the gut is to find a way to listen to your gut, because that is your future self talking to you. That's how your future self talks to you. That's the language in which your future self knows. So when you're performing your magic, it's important to have a relationship with that, because it works through symbology and it's a production. It's constantly making things like hormones and stuff for you as well, unlike the mind.
I like that, and life can be magical. I mean, it takes some work.
Yes.
That it can be.
Well, it's not as much work as you think it is. Here's okay. We make it complicated.
You're going to debunk my statement there?
No, not at all. Not at all, because here's why.
No, I love it. I'm just teasing with you.
Okay. We like to play these kind of things and do these kind of things, right? We enjoy these processes because joy and purpose is really why we even move into these realms to begin with. Because we want to have a relationship with all things. And that's how the harmony matrix works. It's like constantly calling you. It's like, oh, you are, basically you obviously know what you want. Let's bring that to that person. So if you're somebody who's got, yeah.
I've got one of the people in the chat room, just a friend, I believe. Immunity to fear and despair. Is there anything you can teach us on how to become immune to fear and despair?
Okay. Fear and despair.
I don't know if that's taking you off topic, but I like whatever they said.
Yeah, I do too. Okay.
That's like an immunization.
So there's the Trinity is fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? Within fear. Okay? It's you have to once you have fear come over you, you have to decide what is the correct action to perform. But one thing that fear does is the first thing it does is it shuts down your mind. So I know this is going to kind of sound off topic, but I promise you it's related. The best way to handle fear is to use the same technology as you handle despair. And that is the technology of humor. Because without humor, there is no way to cope with overwhelming situations that you feel there is no way for you to get out of. You have to just find a way to stand up and face it and realize I'm going to wake up tomorrow and have to fight another day. And you keep doing that. You keep fighting and until you realize through time, through these processes, that there is a way, and the only way to do that is to find the core root problem of why it's causing you the distress in the first place. What is it that's barreling down on you? Is it loneliness? Is it past choices that you've made? If it's past choices you've made,
failure, fear of success.
Yeah.
Or a combination.
Yeah, because let's tie this to time travel, because here's why. We have access to the extremes of our reality. This is how powerful our imagination is, okay? And our reality comes crashing in on us, and it's like, and what we have to do is we just have to make choices to maneuver our way through all this. And if we can just find the right timeline, if you will, to make the choice to see, okay, that if I do these few things, I'll ease the pain a little bit just in this one area. So maybe I need to remove this person out of my life, or maybe I need to put myself over here in this situation so I can see if I can gather new insights, or maybe
I used immunity to fear and despair. That's a really good word right there.
It's hard. There's a lot of protection. There's a lot of, it's really, every situation is different. Every situation is unique, and there are ways.
You just say it did take some practice, at least.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just teasing you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I just, it's nice to have these kind of discussions, but there are people who are suffering out there, and if we can minimize that in some way, if we can find a way to harmonize ourselves with our reality, So to where we're bringing in influences around us that help us grow, that are more beneficial for us. I think that's more of the healing process that needs to take place when we have despair and fear in our lives. Because here's kind of how it works. If you just look at the closest 5 people around you, your 5 friends or 5 family members, whoever the closest 5 people you pretty much interact with on a consistent basis, you can look at those people and you can pretty much assume that you're probably the average of those. You are the average of those people. So that will give you a kind of a basis on where you kind of stand within your reality matrix, within your local matrix. Now you have the power to change your reality, but it takes a lot of work because you are in like a fabric, there's like a morphic field that we're all connected to, and you're in a fabric. So if you are one particular point within that fabric, one perspective, and in order for you to have a more enlightened experience, I guess, or a more enjoyable one that has less fear, that has less despair, you have to find a way to maneuver yourself into a position where you're in a better place. And the best way to do that is to look at your influences around you and then change those people, those influences, your job, whatever the case may be, or your lack of job, whatever it is, you change that so that way you have a way to bring that into you. So now the fabric in which you are working within, you have more influence, more way to spread out. So you have assistance, you have help, because that's the key to this whole thing is we can't do it alone. Nobody can do this alone.
No, and there's another comment too that Mr. Friend said. Empathy is the beginning of wisdom. I mean, these people are really smart in the chat room, Damian. I mean,
yeah, they are. Yeah, yes, they are.
They're guys to take over the show. I mean, we could have a huge panel discussion with all of you on here discussing.
So empathy and sympathy. It is nice to have evidence. It's nice to have time in time travel, but you also have to have space. And space is, in reality, is actually compassion. And this is the compassion sciences, the sciences of sound, not the sciences of light in which we are talking about here. Truth is sound, okay? Truth, when you think of light is the active property of truth, where just plain old truth is the passive property of it, if that makes sense. So we're inserting sound into the reality matrix because we've done great with light. We can do a lot with light, but we haven't really focused on the other half, which is that which we listen. And the listening will bring us compassion, will bring us care, will bring us these properties that, to care for a fellow human being, to care for other creatures, so to speak, of the world, whatever the case may be, whatever your passion is, growing, vegetables, right?
Right. Well, this is a very, very interesting topic, Damian, and everything that you're saying is kind of reminding us of what we already know. I mean, it's hitting. Apparently, it's hitting everybody's gut. Their intuition. 1200 hertz music sound. Basis compassion in time travel. Definitely, it's so true.
So to finish off on time travel real quick, I think that might be interesting. Is when you think of the future is actually it is happening, and you do have a connection to that future, but there is an infinite number of possibilities, and the closer you are from the moment, the right now moment, the now moment, the closer you are to that moment. So say it's a year from now, the more accurate you can predict the trend model. This is the timeline management model that I'm talking about. I teach that on the remote viewing stuff, and you can predict events into the future based on all the activities that are going on right now, because everything happening now that's real is going to happen in the future and has happened in the past, because that's kind of how this whole system works together. So you can actually see the future. It's just going to have a probability window of an infinite number of them, and then there's what I call, I know this is kind of complicated, but there's a kind of a divergence ratio based on future events. So And that's because there's decisions and choices being made by everybody. And the fact that we're talking about it in the now actually changes the future. So if I say that, they're going to build, or they're going to paint the Bay Bridge blue next year, and then they paint the Bay Bridge blue next year, people will say, wow, that's amazing, he predicted it. But maybe because I said they're going to paint the Bay Bridge blue next year, now they're not going to do it because we already made that a reality in this moment, if that makes sense. So,
well, no, it makes absolutely perfect sense. And I want to say another comment that you said in the chat room. All this is blowing me away. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this show, folks. I suggest you do it too if you want to listen to it a second time later. So environment is key, joy is purpose, trial and error is how it's all made. Make mistakes and grow and bloom from them.
Yeah, we all have different pressures and temperatures, and some people suffer.
Freaking Dawn says love.
Love. Okay, that's great. I'm glad. Okay, let's talk about that just for half a second here. On my channel, I've been doing the these numbers and things like that, and I just did this one about the number 8 and sensation, stuff like that, the 8th sense. The 9th sense is actually love. So I'm really glad you brought that up, and that's and I call it the ratio. For me, those are the ingredients of your life. And the only way you have access to them is this funny little thing called love. And it's because it permeates everything in this realm, and there is nothing else that exists within it. And when you did that, when you interviewed when you interviewed Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and he talked about the cavitation process, this is exactly what love is in this particular realm. It's like dropping a...
Explain that, the cavitation process then.
Sure. Okay, so this is kind of how it works. It's like dropping. You are a drop of water, and you fall into the morphic field of all things, which is the great ocean, the emotion of all of life. And when you hit the surface of this, you bounce off of it, and when you do, you pull a little bit of the morphic field with you, and you grab the air that surrounds you as well, and you fold in on yourself, and you create a little bubble around you. And inside that, you have an exclusion zone of the environment in which you found yourself in when you fell, and the morphic field itself is all around you, and you are within the exclusion zone. So that's what the cavitation process is. And so what love is love. So in other words, love is all around you. It connects all the things. It's like the glue. It's the stickiness.
You have to connect it. I mean, you have to connect with it. Because
it's there if you want it. It doesn't have to, it's only there if you want it, because it's completely passive. It's like the regenerative force. It doesn't show itself unless it doesn't look at you unless you look at it.
Okay. Oh, so it's not there until you're the determining factor.
You are the master of it. It doesn't want to rule over anybody. It doesn't want to. It just is. It just is. And you can access it if you want to, or if you choose not to, you can do that too.
You know what, Damian? This is great. This is great information. I think this is quite a bit for everybody to absorb, and I do tell everybody, go back and listen to it again, especially you in the chat room, because we're all interacting